Okay, so I need to start this one out by fixing a mistake. Let me show you here. I'm going to go to this area here. Okay, when it comes to the blur disc texturing, that texture is going to come from the texture of your propeller blade itself. So this line here says that the texture is going to be generated from approximately 15% of the way down the texture, from the very top down. So the left side of the row will map to the inside edge of the disc, and the right side will map to the outer edge. And so in many cases, this is effective enough that a special blur disc and texture are not required. So a lot of times this blur disc or prop disc is not going to be necessary. The default one will be used and usually does a good job. But what I did was is to not correctly map the blades. So as far as how I put them in the one-to-one. So if I open this up, you can see that I've got the left, that the inside edge should be on the left and the tip should be at the right for it to texture properly. So, and then another thing to check too is to go to polys, and I want to check which one is the front face, which this would be the front face of the prop, and that's facing the correct way. And we're going to be using that as our blur disc texture. Another thing to note is that there are 20 squares vertically in this one-to-one. So they're basically, each square at the line is 5% of the texture. So this third line down would be 15%. So what I want to do is I can select this face here, and I'm going to rotate the blade around, and I'm going to move that up so that this line lines up down the whole blade. Should be good. And then the other blade can actually just be flipped the way it was. So now we're looking at an upside down version, but it's gonna map from left to right. So now I would need to generate a new map to overwrite the old. So I'm gonna make the same as before, and this is the new updated texture. And there's my prompt template from before. I'm going to overwrite that. Okay, so that should be good. So I can close this stuff out, and I'll need to collapse this to actually save those new UV coordinates. So I'm going to save the project, and I'm going to open Photoshop. In Photoshop, I will be opening the prop template. Okay, so what I usually do in here is to fix a few things. So firstly, I like to go up to Image Adjustments, go over here and Invert. So now I basically have an easy cutout to work with. And I'm going to use the magic wand, which is here, and I'll magic wand select all of the white that's in this layer, and I'm going to delete that. And then I'll go up to select, and I'll inverse my selection, create a new layer, and on that layer I'm going to make a 126, 126, 126 gray. That's where all of these here would say 126, perfectly medium gray. And on this layer, I'm going to fill gray. As a matter of fact, let me back that up. Let me show you a little trick here. There's always some color bleed in Real Flight. So one of the things to do is to first select and modify and expand the selection. We'll expand that by 3 pixels. When I hit OK, you'll see it moved the selection out a little bit, and that'll help to cover up your bleed problem. So now when I fill, it'll go all the way out to the edge. I'll select and go to inverse, I'm going to create a new layer underneath this one. Switch over to black by using this little arrow, and I'll fill in black. I can get rid of my selection by Control D on the keyboard, drop this down by merging it down, drop this to the bottom, and I can take this layer here and just fade it down so it's just kind of a general guide. And I usually do something like name this base for all my color schemes, and name this mesh, and then I'll create a layer in between. Call this color. Alright, so the color is going to be black. I'll bring up a picture of the prop. Alright, so this is our picture. Alright. So I'm going to go down to this base layer and I'm going to select my blades, and on the new color layer I'm going to pick something that's not quite all the way black, and I'm going to fill that. Okay, now let's bring that picture back. So I've got the tip of this is going to be orange, so what I'm going to do is go back here, and I'm going to use my selection box here, and I'm going to subtract from the selection. I'm going to subtract about to here, and then I'll subtract about to there, because I really don't care how precise this is. And I'm going to pick an orange color that works, kind of a little more red probably. Make a new layer, call this layer tip color, and I'm going to fill that. Okay, you can see that the mesh is just not there anymore. Bring the color back. I could recreate this stuff here if I like. Be pretty simple actually, just to open this picture in Photoshop, and let me get rid of this ruler. I'm going to get in really close and just make a little selection here around this image. Control J that out. And then while that layer is selected, I'm going to just grab it, go up to the other project, and I will drop this in. And I'm going to rotate this evenly, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I need to size this a little better. It's obviously not that large when it comes to the picture, so we'll come back here and look, kind of get a feel for it. It's quite a bit smaller. So I'm just going to Shift Alt and drag this down to a size I feel is about right. And that ought to work. Now I want to cut this black out. So what I usually do is just zoom in nice and close and just start tracing. So if you don't, it's not really a tutorial about how to use the pen tool, but usually I never try to go more than 90 degrees around an arc. And you hit the Alt key on the keyboard while you click on the node, and it deletes the other side, and it just allows you to not continue the same curve. So every time I come around here, I can go all the way down to here, all the way to there, and what do you know, we're halfway done already. There are other ways to do this. I could have created a mask. I could have done all kinds of stuff. This will work. We'll get there. Seems like it takes forever, but I don't even know why I'm doing so much here. The other method is just to click, click, click. Doesn't matter how many nodes that I have anyway. So okay, so I'm all the way around here, and I'm going to make that a selection, and I'll inverse the selection, and then hit delete, and it got rid of everything else. Control D, and now I just have my sticker. I'm not going to do anything else with this. This ought to work. One major thing to know, and this is kind of one of the important things, is that you're going to save this as a targa, and you don't want any alpha information. If you don't, um, if you save this as a 32-bit, you're going to actually be saving a large enough file for an alpha layer. And if RealFlight detects that it's a 32-bit, it will give you an alpha layer that's all white, and you'll end up with a shiny prop disk or a shiny blade. You may want that, you may not. I think in this case, 32-bit would give me a shiny blade, and I'm alright to go with that. And you can compress RLE. RealFlight's compatible with that, and you'll end up with a smaller file size even. So I'm saving that out. So now I can go back into 3ds Max, and I'm going to drag this texture onto here. Use this little thing here and go down. And I don't know where I saved that to. So let's go see where I saved it to. Save as Targa. Prop template TGA. Okay, so why am I not seeing that here? Oh, because it's on JPEG. So I'm going to go here. And there we go. Let's see how that joins up. Seems to join up halfway decent. That'll work. Anyways. Okay. The other thing I would want to do is to unhide all. I'm going to make my hub all black. We'll just fit this. We'll just do a quick mapping. Scale this up. Just put this down in the corner. Okay. Collapse all. Yes. Okay, so now we have our, let's see. Oh, the other thing I want to do is come up here, and I've brought in this texture. Make sure that I right click on this M and hit clear, and then I can delete that. That ends up doing the best job for me. Okay, also I'm going to go up here to Orthographic. I want to be in Orthographic mode. I want to show my safe frames. Make this as large as I can. Staying in top view. Okay, that ought to be good. And matter of fact, let's just flip it like this. Okay, now I'm going to do a render, and let me set up my render. My render setup. I want to set this up as my 1024. Okay, and let me set this up again one more time, because this will set this on a same size. Awesome. Okay, so this is going to be our side view. This is what RealFlight eventually will use to show the side of the prop. Actually, let's drag this down towards the bottom. So now what I'm going to do is to okay, I'm going to save this out as my side view first. JPEG side. Don't know why I did that. JPEG side. Okay, and then I'm going to hit this alpha button, and this is going to give me a selection so that I can set an alpha layer for the texture later. And I'll save this as a JPEG and call it side alpha. And save that out. Okay. And this is the side view texture that we're going to be creating. So this is the texture that's designed to provide a view of the propeller in motion when viewed edge on. It should include motion blur and should be carefully matched to the profile of the blur disk shape. Okay, so you can see that we have a nice side view, orthographic. It should follow along with the blur disk shape. It'll work fine for that. And the motion blur is something we're going to add in Photoshop. So I'm going to open up the side and side alpha, and the alpha did not work correctly, so that's awesome. Well, that's going to confuse things a little bit. So who knows, this may work just fine without it. So we're going to get rid of that alpha. And first off, I'm going to crop this image down tightly to what I see here. I'm also going to crop this up to about halfway up the hub, because that's the partial diameter of the blur disk, the radius. Okay, so that looks good. So now what I want to do from this is to create a selection by using the magic wand of this black area. And one way to do this is to set my tolerance to 0. It won't tolerate any other colors. So do this again, and you can see now it's just grabbing that black, which is good. So now we're going to go back to channels, and I'm going to add a channel here, new channel. It immediately becomes the alpha channel. Black is invisible, and white is fully visible. So I'm going to select inverse, and I will flood fill just where the prop is. Then black will become invisible now because we have an alpha channel installed. So go back to layers. Okay, so now the next thing to do here is to put some motion blur on this blade. So we'll go to filter, blur, motion, and I'll set this to 90 degrees eventually. And let's look at the preview here. Give it more distance. Alright, I can see that it's blurring out. That looks pretty nice. Okay, now there's a specific name that this needs to have, so we're going to save as a targa, TGA, whatever, and it's going to be called, let's see, PropTut is what I'm going to call the actual blade itself. PropTut. Then you have to have a space, and then it's required to say side. So if this is whatever the name you choose for your prop, it goes here. Mine just happens to be PropTut. Space, that's very important, and then side TGA. So we'll save that to the desktop. And we want to save 32 bits compressed RLE, and that will give us the proper image that we're looking for. So we'll combine this stuff in the next video, see how we do.